Hello everyone. Today in this video we are going to discuss about characteristics of big data. Before moving to the characteristics of big data, let us understand what do you mean by big data. As name indicates, big data is a collection of huge amount of data with large size and complexity. As the size of data increases, the complexity will be more. Here, the traditional data management tools cannot handle this kind of data because the traditional data follows the structured format such as table format to store and access the data. But big data contains the huge amount of data. It may be in the form of structured data or unstructured data or semi-structured data. So it requires some special tools and technologies to handle it. Nowadays, the big data is used everywhere. For example, in medical field and in government field, education field, etc. Now let us see what are the characteristics of big data. There are mainly five characteristics of big data, that is volume, variety, value, velocity and veracity. Let us understand what do you mean by volume. The volume refers to the size of the data, that is huge amount of data that is collected and generated every second in large organizations. Here the large organizations in the sense social medias, medical sectors, government sectors, etc. And this data can be generated from different sources such as social medias, financial transactions, videos, audios, etc. In earlier days, storing and processing the huge amount of data was a big problem. But nowadays, we are currently using distributed systems to store the data in several locations and bring them together by the software framework like Hadoop. Everyone are using social medias. There the big data is applied. So let us consider, for example, Facebook. The Facebook alone can generate about billion messages and 350 million new posters are uploaded each day. So just imagine how large the data is generated. So to handle this kind of data, it requires big data technologies. Now let us move on to the next characteristic, that is velocity. Here, the velocity refers to the high speed of data that is generated in every second, and it also refers to the potential of the data, how fast the data is generated and processed to meet the demands of users. For example, there are more than 3.5 billion searches per day are made on Google, and also the Facebook users are increasing by 22% approximately every year. As the size of data increases, the speed of the data processing should be faster to complete the process as much as earlier. So this is velocity. Now let us move on to the next characteristics, that is variety. Here the variety refers to the different sources of data and their nature. The data can be structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data and multi-structured data. Now let us see structured data. This data which follows the data models, and basically it is an organized data such as table format. To store and access the data was easy by using structured data. For example, RDBMS. Now unstructured data. This is the data does not follow any data models and it is an unorganized data. It refers to the data that does not fit neatly into their traditional rows and columns structure of the relational database. For example, videos, audios, pictures, etc. According to the research, in the world there are 20% of data is structured data and remaining 80% of data is unstructured data. Now semi-structured data. This is the data which contains both structured data as well as unstructured data. This is data which does not follows the format of tabular data models or relational data models because it does not have the fixed schema. For example, email. Here, the email actual content is structured data, but it does contain structured data such as name, email address of senders and recipient, time sent, etc. So this is semi-structured data. Now multi-structured data. This is the data consists of structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. For example, web applications or social networks. In earlier days, the data is collected from the databases and spreadsheets only, but nowadays the data is collected from different forms such as PDFs, images, emails, audios, videos, etc. Let us move on to the next characteristics, that is value. Here, the value is not only storing and processing the data, but it is important to gather the useful information from the data. No matter how fast the data is produced, it has to be reliable and useful. Otherwise, what happens? The data is not good enough to processing and analyzing. The research says that the poor quality of data leads to almost 20% loss in companies' revenue. So the data set it needs to be cleaned and retrieve the most useful information from the data before analyzing it, and then pattern identification is done on that data set. If the process is success, then the data is considered to be a valuable data. Now move on to the next and the last characteristics of big data, that is veracity. The veracity is nothing but how the data is trustworthy, and also it refers the accuracy of the data. As we know that most of the data is unstructured data, it is important to filter out the unnecessary information from that data and use the rest of the data for processing to get the meaningful insights from that data. So these are the different five main characteristics of big data. I hope you all understand. Thanks for watching.